Hi, T. Carlson here, and we're back with another cinematic classic from the mind of Stanley Kubrick that's finally hit the 4K format. I refer to his classic and controversial 1971 film, A Clockwork Orange. This, of course, is the Best Buy exclusive Steelbook that I just got in the mail the other day. It was slightly delayed by like 2 days, but I got it and I've just had a chance to view it. One of my favorite films, and every time they put out more Stanley Kubrick on 4K, I'm always going to be first in line to get it, maybe with a few exceptions here and there. So anyway, we'll do a quick unboxing. I'll talk about the film, as well as some of the other features and so forth. So here's the front cover of the Steelbook, of course, Malcolm McDowell as Alex here. Here's the backing card that comes on here. Again, I usually just throw these out because they're not really part of the package. Here's the back underneath the backing card. Spine of the case. Now inside here we have a digital code, and then we have, of course, our discs inside the Steelbook. Here's our 4K disc, bright orange, of course, since it's Clockwork Orange. Then we have our Blu-ray disc. The special features are on the Blu-ray disc. Unfortunately, the Blu-ray is just the same as the older version of the movie that was on Blu-ray. It's not the remaster that's used for the 4K, but we'll get more into that later. A Clockwork Orange, of course, is set in the not-so-distant future, and it follows the life of Alexander DeLarge, who's a gang leader who spends his evenings going around robbing, raping, assaulting, pretty much doing anything that brings him pleasure with no regard for anyone or anything else whatsoever. Over time, his fellow gang members become seriously disturbed by his controlling behavior, and they set him up to be arrested for a crime. When he's incarcerated, he learns about a technique that could actually get him out of jail faster, and he submits to this technique. Unfortunately, quickly discovers that re-entering society when you have no free will whatsoever is not an easy task. A Clockwork Orange is one of the most controversial films ever made. It was originally rated X in the United States. There was an R-rated theatrical version that was slightly edited. All subsequent releases of the film are the original X-rated cut of the movie. However, they simply contain the R rating on the packaging. Again, Stanley Kubrick directed the film. This is the movie he made after 2001: A Space Odyssey, but prior to Barry Lyndon later in the 1970s. The film was scored by Walter Carlos, later known as Wendy Carlos, a regular composer, collaborator of Kubrick. And the movie, due to its controversial nature, was actually banned in several countries. You certainly could not make this film in the politically correct climate of today. It's gruesome, shocking, violent, and at times strangely funny and satirical. I'm not going to get too into the meanings and the interpretations of this film because that's been talked about at length on countless other websites and so forth. This is the role of Malcolm McDowell's career. He brings Alexander DeLarge to life as a murderous hoodlum, but who later in the film becomes just about the only character we can actually sympathize with and relate to. That Kubrick could go to these extremes with one character is pretty remarkable. Casting in the movie is surprisingly good. A lot of these are names that I didn't immediately recognize, but there are some pretty noteworthy actors interspaced here and there that have been in other films. There's an appearance from Michael Bates as like the head prison guard. He had previously played General Montgomery in the film Patton. And there's even a small role from Steven Berkoff as a police officer. He would later go on to play the Russian villain in the James Bond film Octopussy, as well as the villain Victor Maitland in the film Beverly Hills Cop. I'm not going to go through and name off every single person in the movie, but one other name worth mentioning here too is David Prowse. Prowse being best known for the actor in Star Wars who wore the Darth Vader costume in the original trilogy, although of course his voice was dubbed over by James Earl Jones. I love just about everything about Clockwork Orange. The set designs are perfect. It creates this not quite dystopian world, but clearly a very screwed up place. It's one of those things you really have to see to believe, although I do have to warn you, if you've never seen this movie before, it is certainly not for the faint of heart. If you are easily offended, squeamish, offended by nudity, stay away from this film because it is definitely not for you. Kubrick was a director who certainly pushed the boundaries of what cinema could be in many ways, and he never had a more controversial film than this one. That said, you know, it's been open to reinterpretation over the years, and it's now widely revered as a classic and certainly one of the greatest films ever made. For what it is, it's certainly a cinematic classic, and it's one that I absolutely love to revisit in its 4K debut. Like I said, this is the first time that A Clockwork Orange has gotten a 4K release. The film hasn't had the best luck on home video formats. The older, previously released DVDs and even the subsequent Blu-rays didn't really look all that great. The Blu-rays largely just looked like up-converted DVDs, and it looked like they'd been overly warmed in terms of the picture quality. If you've ever been to England, it's not a warm-looking place, so you can know that whoever was doing the color timing on those really had no idea what they were doing. The 4K is finally the format that rights all past wrongs when it comes to home video versions of Clockwork Orange. There was a 4K remaster done, and that's the basis for this disc. The brights, whites, and darks look better than they ever have. There are a lot of, shadowy scenes at night, and those really benefit from the 4K treatment here. I'm really happy to see that the movie's been cleaned up, the color timing looks better. Pretty much every aspect is largely improved. I will say this, there are a few soft shots because of the way Stanley Kubrick had the movie filmed that it's never going to look perfect, but for what it is, I don't think A Clockwork Orange is ever going to look better than it does on this 4K disc. If this is the best the movie ever looks, I've got to say, I'm okay with that. Disappointingly, no new bonus features on here, and even the included Blu-ray just has the older Blu-ray version of the movie, not the remastered version that's on the 4K disc. We get a quartet of featurettes on here, and sadly it's missing the bonus disc from the 2011 Blu-ray release, which had a pretty comprehensive Stanley Kubrick documentary on it. Missing that is kind of a pain, and I wish that included at least one new feature here, but in the long run, we come here for the film, so I can't complain too much. It's a great-looking disc for a great-looking film. Are you a fan of Stanley Kubrick, and is A Clockwork Orange one of your personal favorite films? Comment down below and let me know what you think. Also, remember to subscribe to my channel for more content. I'm always posting new videos, and make sure to give this one a like if you found it helpful. I'm Taylor T. Carlson, and I'll see you in my next video.